morning, my friends. Today, there's two main issues I wanna focus on with this car. I feel like I keep saying I'm fixing the last issue with the car, but let's be real. It's a new build, and there's gonna be issues until there's not. So the first thing, not really an issue, it's an annoyance. And I swear, every 8 or 9 that I've ever personally had does this. This rattle. Okay? So that's issue number 1. I want to get that issue dealt with and resolved because it is annoying. But before we do that, I'm going into this parking lot because I think it's going to look cool with my Evo. If you didn't see yesterday's video, we put some carbon skirts on it, a carbon Voltex style rear diffuser. The day prior, we did the front bumper with the lip, got the hood vent back on. This exterior is getting pretty complete. I want to tint the windows. I've been kind of holding off on that. I'm debating trying to learn how to tint myself again. I've tried once before and I failed, but I might try again. We'll see. But for now, let's go see how it looks. Here she is, my friends. The Evo 8 in all of its glory. Coming right along. Let's do a full walk around. I should probably fix that burnt out bulb as well. You know, it would help if I turned on the microphone. But long story short, I put the car up in the air, put her in 3rd gear, let it decel on its own, and the noise was non-existent. So long story short, it only does the underload, which makes me feel like it's a drivetrain related component, clutch, transmission, or T-case issue. Well, let's move on to another issue that this car has. This is an issue that Mitsubishi, the dealer, wants $1,100 to fix. That's what I read online, at least. I didn't go ask them myself, but here's the issue. If you pop inside this glorious interior and take a look here, stuck. Does not move. We already did the new cables, the revised gears, and if neither of those fix it, it is the blend door that needs repair. Now here's the problem. Our whole entire dash, this whole thing, has got to come back out. That's why I've been putting it off, because that does not sound fun, does it? Well, I'm here to tell you, it is not going to be fun. There is about 1 million different pieces that we need to remove, so let's get started with the A-pillars. Got to be extra careful. Ta-da! Now instead of removing the steering wheel, which it's not a big deal, I'm hoping I can just loosen up the bolts on the steering column and drop that down. Like that. 2 bolts instead of messing with the airbag and all that jazz. Well, I'm going to disconnect the battery, disconnect the passenger side airbag, and technically the dash, the pad itself, should be able to come out. I'm hoping we don't need to pull that dash bar out. If we do, it's not a big deal. Please come out with ease, my friend. If I'm being honest, pulling that dash only took probably 20 minutes. I mean, it helps I've done it like 40 times, but it's really not that big of a deal. A couple minutes later, we're about ready to pull the dash bar out. What a fun project, my friends. Great fun. Dash bar with all the wiring and fuse box is now removed. And voila, this is the culprit. What a pain. Now, being that we got to pull the heater core, of course, there's coolant that goes to it. So those 2 heater core hoses right there, those need to be removed. My plan is to just pinch the hoses so I don't have to drain the whole entire system. Now, there's going to be a little bit of leakage, of course, so I'll use some rags for that. But hopefully, we don't make a mess. It's always the goal, to not make a mess. So both heater core hoses are removed. Made a little bit of a mess. Not too bad. And now this stuff can be removed. If I'm not mistaken, both the box and the heater core come out as a unit, as one piece. Okay, well, this is separated. Nice. You know, I suppose it would help if you disconnected the AC lines. Now, thankfully, we hadn't charged the AC system yet, so that's super duper. So I have this guy out. Here's our new gears, and you can tell, like, it'll spin with a lot of force, but it should not take that much force, of course. So I'm gonna tear this thing down. Now I know you can order some parts for it and whatnot. Of course, I didn't order the blend door kit, so I'm hoping I can just MacGyver some things and make it right. Interesting. Someone's been in this before because it's missing 70% of the screws. I wish I had the spare off the parts car, but someone else needed it, of course, and I sent it to them. So now I don't have one. It's probably all that dirt. Look at all this dirt in there. My senses tell me if we get all that dirt cleaned out of the gears, maybe put a little bit of white lithium grease on those gears, that should be fixed. I'm gonna start off with just giving these pieces a good hose down, getting all this dirt and grime off here, and that alone might just fix it. Now, of course, this guy here for the AC, you don't wanna get it full of gunk. So I'm just putting my hand here, make sure I get no water in it. I got everything cleaned up, and already this thing moves. Apparently perfectly. I'm gonna go ahead and apply just a little bit of grease just to make this thing hopefully slide and move a little bit better. Go ahead and put our gears on and make sure everything works like it should. So I got this moving freely, got everything lubed up, put the gears on, and decided before I put this thing back together, let's go ahead and test it out. As you can see, it's not well, which makes no sense because if we pull the cable off, you can see the cable and this guy here, the gears in here, everything moves freely there, and this guy moves freely as well. But there's not really another choice. These are the updated gears. The last thing to do is just go ahead and buy the blend door repair kit. Even though it moves freely, there's not another option if I want to be able to control AC or the temperature, the cabin temperature. That blend door repair kit is also $200, so that is not fun. Well, unfortunately, since we can't do anything with the HVAC system for now until we get those parts in, next best thing, I know this is random, but I had to order these from Japan, and honestly, I'm kind of excited. They took a while to come in, but this is a brand new OEM set of 5-speed shifter cables. And there's only one reason I bought them. Even though the car doesn't really need them, it wants them. Let me pop these guys off. It'll be super easy with the whole center console out. So perfect timing. But here is the reason I wanted a brand new set. These originally were all rusty, so I painted them. And of course the paint didn't last. There wasn't really a good way to prep them out. So I bought a brand new set. Brand new OEM shifter cables are fully installed. So the way I see this is we have two options. Option one is we order a new blend door kit. Could take up to a week to get. That's option one. It's a good option. Option two, grab my bucket of tools, head to a local wrecking yard, hopefully find a blended door in an 02 to 07 Lancer or a 03 to 06 Mitsubishi Outlander that operates properly. Take that out of the car, spend probably an hour doing it, spend about $5 doing it, and get the car back on the road today. I think y'all know where I'm headed. All right, we made it to my favorite store in the world, good old Pull and Save. Unfortunately, they only had one Lancer, and as you guys can see, this guy is stuck worse than mine. So their website showed they had two Lancers and no Outlanders here at this Pull and Save. And one of the Lancers ended up being crushed this morning. It must have been here for too long or something. And of course, the other Lancer, as you guys saw, the blend door was completely seized up on that one, almost worse than mine. But I didn't leave empty-handed. I got a ton of good parts, screws, clips, windshield sprayers, rear window switches, $15 worth of goodies. So that was a solid day. They have another store about 10 miles away. I'm gonna go there. They have one Lancer there. Made it to the second wrecking yard. This is actually a Rally Art or OZ Rally or one of those editions. And I noticed right off the bat the shaft for the climate control is broken, so made me a little bit worried. Put a knob on it, it spun freely. As soon as I looked up underneath the dash, it was already torn apart, so I knew this one was probably not the one to get. Even though we did not get the blend door that we needed, we did not leave empty-handed. So here's what I gathered from both wrecking yards. Those little covers that go up by the mirrors, window switches and window covers, top steering column cover, a relay, and a whole bunch of screws and clips and whatnot that we needed. That are really hard to find or impossible to find for a Mitsubishi. In other words, just a whole lot of boring stuff. Let's move on to something not boring though. What's not boring is the Haltech Flex Fuel kit that we are going to be installing on the car now. Perfect timing because the ECU is already out of the car. And I'm gonna run you guys through exactly what you need to do. So I went ahead and ordered the Haltech Flex Fuel sensor. You don't need to order the Haltech branded. It's pretty much all the same, but I figured might as well, right? Mainly because it comes with this nice little bracket that says Haltech. So there's 3 wires on this. We're gonna have a signal, a power, and a ground. It's very easy to wire in to the Haltech ECU itself. Let's lay everything out real quick and then we'll show you how to do it. We have everything laid out here. The ECU, the wiring, we're gonna need 3 wires, and on this side is the Flex Fuel sensor itself. So the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and get these pins installed. Now let me show you how to do that. So these pins are for the Flex Fuel side. So we're gonna strip off a bit of wire, something like that. Now there's this little rubber insulator, slide that guy on. Take your wiring pin, take a pair of crimpers that are made for these types of pins, and bam, crimp that down. Now we're going to take this insulator, slide it up, and go ahead and crimp that on as well. So all finished up, that is how your pin should look on the end of your wire. Now if we take a look at the Flex Fuel wiring connector, the left side, this pin here, that is the power, middle is ground, right side is signal. All finished up, you should have something looking like that. Now take your little clip that holds all the pins in, clip that guy on, and we're done. Now we can go ahead and do the pins on the ECU side. Same exact concept, same style of pin. I always in the past try to get these pins on to the wires with just like a pair of pliers or something. Never would work well. So get yourself a proper pair of crimping tools. It'll help tremendously. Now the fun part. Make sure you do this before you put the connector on, but we need to go ahead and get some wiring loom on it. I'm a big fan of this braided style of loom like this. I just hope I have enough. Now on the ECU side, being that it pins into this connector right here, I don't want the harness stuck on the car and the ECU stuck on the car because of this harness. So what I'm going to do is add in a 3-pin Deutsch connector just so we can easily remove this thing in the future without any worries or trouble. All right, here's an up-close view. Flex Fuel sensor, harness comes out, fully loomed up to this 3-pin Deutsch. These 3 pins here are going to plug into what Haltech calls the auxiliary connector. So we're going to be using pin 7, which is a spare SPI, optional Flex Fuel input. We need a ground, so that can be pin 12, and then we need a 12 volt supply. So pin 8 is a 12 volt. Flex Fuels require a 12 volt, not a 5 volt, like a traditional oil pressure or a boost sensor. You must use a 12. We have the Flex Fuel harness pinned in, and then it runs about 6 inches and goes to this connector. All right, we need to run this harness through the firewall. It should be fairly simple right now because the entire dash is out. We are going to run it through that same boot that we ran the wideband through. So the wiring is passed through the firewall and she connects here. Got plenty of length in here. As of now, all of the wiring is done. Now we need to mount and plumb the Flex Fuel sensor. Initially, I was going to drill into the firewall right up in there, but I'm going to pull off that plate right there, and there should be a pretty good mounting spot for the Flex Fuel sensor on that plate. So now we don't have to drill into the firewall. we just drill into our plate. Plate is removed. This guy is going to be mounted right there. Literally the perfect location for the flex fuel sensor. I love it. Tapped in some threads onto this bracket, and just like that, my friends, our Haltech flex fuel sensor is mounted. The flex fuel is fully plumbed, fully wired, it's mounted, everything's done. And the nicest thing, which was one of the most important things to me, is I didn't want to clutter up the bay with wiring, with plumbing, and with the sensor. Honestly, you can't even tell it's there, which is ideal. I'm gonna plug in the ECU real quick, plug in the laptop. Hopefully with all this out, we still have ECU power, and we can run through the setup in Haltech. Unfortunately, the ignition switch is disconnected, so we're not gonna have any sort of way to get power to the ECU, which is not a big deal. We can go ahead and save that for another day when we get the necessary parts to get the interior back together. Setup on the ECU itself is very, very simple. It takes about 2 seconds. But that's the gist of adding flex fuel to your Haltech car. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna wrap it up right here, and I'll see you boys in the next video. Goodbye.